Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Triple Play Analytics. My name is Hassan Krishna Butler, and today we're going to be talking some baseball. Before we get into that, I'd like to give, my round of shout-outs to teams and players across the sports universe and for some accomplishments that they've had this week or so. So let's start off with the Las Vegas Golden Knights and the Winnipeg Jets. Both of them had their first ever playoff victories in franchise history. Now they both have two playoff victories, actually. Winnipeg up on a 2-0 lead against the Minnesota Wild, and the Vegas Golden Knights 2-0 lead on the Los Angeles Kings. I'm going to make an addendum to that also. Vegas Golden Knights' first ever playoff victory, playoff overtime victory, and played in their longest game in franchise history. Now, although there are going to be a lot of, franchise records set by the Golden Knights as it is their inaugural season, but for the Winnipeg Jets, this is pretty huge that they're back in the playoffs, the number 2 seed in the West, number 1 in their division, and they are playing like a runaway freight train. So, congrats to both of them. Next, Sidney Crosby. There are not enough superlatives that can be said about the type of player he is, the type of leader he is, but, we can talk about the fact that he had a playoff natural hat trick in Game 1 against Philadelphia in a 7-0 win. That's pretty impressive as he now ties Mario Lemieux for most natural hat tricks in Penguins history in the playoffs. It's pretty crazy, pretty great also, so congrats to Crosby. Hopefully they can get the lead back in the series after a 5-1 defeat last night against the Flyers at home. And finally, shout out to the person we're talking about today, Jameson Taillon, pitcher for the Pirates. Shout out to him. He had his first ever complete game shutout against, I believe it was the Cincinnati Reds, I want to say. I should be right because I watched that game. Yes, against the Cincinnati Reds. What's more impressive, rather than just a complete game shutout, his line was 1 hit, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. So it was a 1-hit complete game shutout. The last Pirate to ever do that, I believe, was A.J. Burnett. So Taillon is already putting himself in some pretty great company. Being in company with A.J. Burnett's pretty cool. So now let's jump straight into who Jameson Taillon is. Jameson Taillon is the second overall draft pick in the 2010 draft by the Pittsburgh Pirates from the Woodlands in Texas, drafted straight out of high school. And what's kind of cool is Bryce Harper was the first overall pick by the Nationals that year. So Taillon has a lot of expectation living up in that draft. He's picked behind Bryce Harper, who's arguably one of the best players in the MLB right now. Well, I don't think there's an argument there. He is one of the best top 3 players in the MLB right now. And he is just on a mission in this free agency year. Taillon is just been playing crazy good. And his growth from last year to this year is going to be kind of important. Because last year, he had a good year. Barring, the cancer treatments he had to go through in the middle of last year, he had a good year for his first full year. So let's look at his line. He had a 4.44 ERA, 133.2 innings pitched, 290 batting average against, 148 WHIP, and a 1.4 WAR. This year, after 2 games, let's just put this all in perspective. This is 2 games worth of data. Is a 1.26 ERA, pretty bonkers. 14.1 innings pitched, 106 average against, 40.49 WHIP, and 0.7 WAR. He's projected this season to have a 3.59 ERA, 190.1 innings pitched, 1.2 WHIP, and 3.6 WAR. So there's supposed to be a very large improvement for Taillon this year. Whether or not that's going to happen is what we're going to look at today. So Jameson Taillon, this guy right here, is in my opinion going to be an all-star this season, and I have reason for saying that. He's an all-star, and he possibly, now there's a very slim chance of this happening, in my opinion, he possibly could lead the Pirates to win a wild card game and make it to the divisional round. That being said, I'm going to say this with 100% certainty that is very small. There is under a 30% chance, in my opinion, that the Pirates get the wild card spot in the NL. It's just too competitive. The Pirates are a very competitive team. Let me make that clear. However, it's just going to be very hard for them because they have to go up against the Cubs, the Brewers, and the Cardinals. The Pirates being a smaller middle market team than, the Cardinals and the Cubs, just don't have the money to do so. That being said, I do think Taillon is a very good pitcher, and he's going to be an all-star. He's going to be in a Pirates uniform for a very good amount of time. So now let's kind of look and see why the projections are so. And we're going to be looking at his pitches and kind of, comparing velocity and movement and kind of determining the outcome of the changes from last year to this year. So let's just take a look at 2017 season. This is his pitch movement. Now, allow me to kind of interpret this graph for you. Taillon has 4 pitches: a changeup, CH, curveball, CU, a four-seam fastball, FF, and a two-seam fastball, FT. Now, the way this is kind of looked at is horizontal movement is the movement of the ball left to right on the plate from a neutral pitch from that starting position. So if you see that the horizontal movement is maybe positive, well, that just means it didn't break as much as the neutral pitch expected. If you see the vertical pitch, which is up and down movement, if you see that he has positive vertical movement, that doesn't mean the pitch that he had is moving up literally. That's almost impossible. Instead, it means the ball did not break as much as expected. So, his changeup had some very good horizontal and vertical break, and the numbers and movement are in inches. It'd be pretty hard to have movement in feet. That'd be pretty crazy. His curveball movement, vertically, it kind of stayed put. It didn't break vertically as much, but horizontally, it really dropped. There was a good amount of drop to it, kind of a 12-6 action on a clock. His four-seam fastball sunk a bit. By that, it kind of had a sinking motion to it. Now, it still looks very flat. It does not break as much down as, expected. But that doesn't mean that it did not break downwards. And then his two-seam fastball movement is a much more exaggerated version of his four-seam fastball. It has much more horizontal and vertical movement downwards and away from his glove hand. Actually, towards his glove hand, excuse me. So now let's take a look at 2018. Now, granted, this is with, 14.1 innings pitched. I believe that's like a total. That's a very small total number of pitches. That's 202 pitches worth of data right there. Not a lot. It's a statistically significant amount of pitches, but I do believe you need more than just 202 to make very accurate and very exact projections. But you can still make pretty good 75% percentile projections. So his changeup, as compared to 2017, has started to drop a bit more. It started to drop a bit more. The horizontal movement is still very similar. The curveball has not dropped as much, actually. Horizontally, it has started to move a bit inwards towards his glove hand, but his curveball has not really had that drop as much. It's dropped more, yes, but it's not dropping an egregious or an extraordinary amount. His four-seam fastball very flat once again, and his two-seam fastball, very similar to his 2017 two-seam fastball, with the fact that it's just a more exaggerated version of his four-seam fastball. So now let's kind of look in depth. Here is his changeup movement from 2017. And as you can see here, the blue and red lines that are given with that kind of shading around it, those are kind of confidence intervals. So that's what the line is that's the average. And the shaded area is 95% confidence that the pitch will fall in that zone. So, what that really looks like is this. In 2017, that was his changeup movement. The vertical movement was pretty good. It did not drop a lot, but it dropped enough. His horizontal movement, it moved away from a right-handed batter and moved inwards, but towards the end of the season, he's kind of worked on getting it to just drop directly down, to kind of sink. 2018, with not that much data, with only, a little over 15 pitches worth, you can't really get the best picture out of it. So a better way to look at this data is actually through a box of whisker plots right here. So 2017, this is what it looks like. And let's just look at the averages. Horizontal average is near zero, vertical average is near zero. So, it does not drop as much, but it still has a drop to it. Now, his 2018, there was much more horizontal movement than vertical movement. So this pitch moves away from a right-handed batter, which is good. It kind of, I wouldn't say, it tails off away. That is, I think, the best way to put it. It has a tailing motion. Now let's look at the velocity here. The velocity is pretty important because there's a bigger difference from start to end from 2017 to 2018. And what that means is that there's going to be a bit more break to it and more swing and miss. And if we looked at, once again, if we go back and look at 2018 horizontal versus 2017 horizontal, on average there is more break. And that makes sense. He's made it slower so that it can break and tail away. And therefore he's going to get a bit more swing and miss. That's what I project. More strikeouts and more the same of a tailing inward, changeup. So now let's look at his curveball. Movement-wise, I think his curveball is going to evolve into a very good 12-6 movement curveball. So the reason I say that is, let's look at these histograms again. Even though these graphs, very nice and good looking, they kind of are harder to read. Just because, axes-wise. And, comparing it to this is very hard. Not enough data, a little over 40 pitches of curveball data in 2 games. That's pretty hard to kind of build a good assumption off of. So I believe, a box and whisker plot will help us here. Horizontal movement, almost zero horizontal movement. Vertical movement, for a changeup, it is, good movement. This neutral pitch is a neutral changeup. It does not break more than, neutral curveball, It does not break more than the neutral curveball in 2017. In 2018, it breaks a bit less than a neutral curveball. And that, that's with 40 pitches worth of data. And I do believe that his curveball, that vertical average, is going to move closer and closer towards about -3, -4. And that's because of the velocity that's given. If you look at the start velocity for his curveball in 2017, it is near 82 miles per hour, and it ends up near 73, 74 miles per hour. Well, let's look at 2018. It's now at 81 miles per hour, and it's going to end up closer to 74 miles per hour. Well, it's going to be it's a slightly harder curveball. So with this harder curveball, it's going to spin. I imagine he's going to increase the spin rate on his curveball to really have it break downwards more, break a lot more. That will initiate that 12-6 action and really make it more like a Kershaw curveball, Clayton Kershaw is known for having an exceptional 12-6 curveball that just drops out of midair. It's like it looks like a fastball coming in, and all of a sudden, after 40 feet, it just drops. That's what I think Taillon is working towards. I believe that's going to help him with his whip, because currently in 2017 he had a 1.48 whip. Well, he's projected to have a 1.2 whip. This curveball is going to help him limit the amount of hits he has, because it'll induce swing and misses above it. However, if he goes up gets a very good batter, a very experienced batter, they might see this curveball and maybe get a few more hits off of it. So his whip isn't going to go down from 1.4 to 0.9. It'll stay above 1, but it will be significantly less than his 2017 totals. Now let's look at his four-seam fastball. This is actually extremely interesting, because his four-seam fastball is not like the rest of the pitchers in the Pittsburgh Pirates rotation. In the Pirates rotation, the Pirates are known for having Chad Kuhl, Trevor Williams, Steven Brault, all these guys to be sinker ballers. So what that means is that their fastballs, they sink. They die off at the end. They're not extremely hard fastballs. So let's look at the movement here. And if they die at the end, that means their vertical movement is going to be low. It's going to be in the negatives. But Taillon's is not. Taillon's is actually positive. What that means is that Taillon's fastball is very flat. It goes in a straight line, does not break down much. Horizontally, this fastball kind of cuts inside a bit. I would not go as far to say it is a cut fastball, however. A cut fastball has a much bigger, drastic movement than Taillon's four-seam fastball. 2018 compared to 2017, the cut that he has on his fastball has decreased, and the vertical movement, the lack of vertical movement has increased. I find this extremely important because what this means is that he has a harder fastball. This harder fastball is flatter, and that's actually pretty cool because it's more like a bullet. It's more accurate. It's more pinpoint. He can hit those top corners, those bottom corners, those inside pitches with more accuracy because he doesn't have to worry about his pitch diving on him or cutting away on him and maybe moving to, if he's throwing an inside fastball, he doesn't have to worry about his pitch maybe creeping its way into the inside, into the heart of the plate. He can now just say, I know my pitch is going to move slightly inside, but I know for a fact it's going to stay at that height. Or it might drop a little, but it's going to stay there, and he can just focus on, I'm going to hit that inside corner and get that inside strike. But then also let's look at his velocity. His velocity at the start, what the batter perceives is around 95 miles per hour, and it ends up at around 80, I want to say 86 miles per hour. That's a good drop. But now let's look at this year. It's a little less than 95, I'd say 94 miles per hour, but it's kind of a bit, there's less of a difference, which kind of makes me believe it's a harder fastball. It doesn't tail off as much. It doesn't lose its steam. It just stays. It stays its course, and it doesn't have any lack of momentum, lack of energy, in a more physical sense. And now his two-seam fastball, well, like I said, based off of the very first box of whisker plot I showed you guys comparing all pitches, there's not much change. With the limited data that I have, with over 600 pitches in 2017, comparing that to, around 40, almost 50 pitches in 2018, I don't see much of a difference here. The difference is pretty minimal, which is good, because that means Taillon is confident in his two-seam fastball and what it does. His two-seam fastball, even though there's slightly a bit more range this year, his two-seam fastball is good for two things: staying vertically in the same area and horizontally moving away from a right-handed batter or moving to his glove side, moving inside. on a left-handed batter, that is. Well, that's pretty good because he might use that. He might use that to attack the outside corners, to kind of cut in and really work on cutting in and move and expanding a strike zone for him. And velocity-wise, he goes 95 to, 86, let's say 85 and a half, 86, let's say that. Now he's going, 95, 94 to, 88, 88, 86. He's got a wider variety. He's willing to put a bit more on it, but also take a bit more off of it, which I find pretty important because that means he's understanding the versatility of throwing at different velocities. Throwing at different velocities allows a pitcher to start fooling the batter multiple times through the rotation, through the lineup. Let's say Taillon starts off a game throwing extremely hard, throwing very fast. His fastball is upper 90s or mid 90s, and his two-seam fastball is maybe nearer to that 96 mark. Well, let's say then through the second time of the rotation, he takes some off of it. He leads with the same movement, but he takes some off of it. That's going to confuse the batters, and if he makes it through the third time through the lineup, that's going to be huge because he leaves the batter guessing. And so, let's just go back one final time and take a look at his movement again. You can see here he's working on making his movement more down and away, down in the zone, making it move down. That I find extremely important because one of my all-time favorite pitchers attacked the zone down, and that is Tim Lincecum. Tim Lincecum attacked the zone down and away, and he was just a hard downwards pitcher. Well, Jameson Taillon is doing pretty much the same thing. He is a hard ball pitcher who is attacking the bottom of the zone. And if you look at Taillon's zone charts, there's actually some pretty crazy stuff here. 42% of the time, from the catcher's perspective, Taillon is pitching almost corner or outside of the zone on the catcher's left-hand side. That's pretty big. And 32% of the time, it's the same area, but on the right-hand side of the plate. Taillon is attacking the bottom of the zone, and that's going to help him develop into a very good pitcher. And that is why I believe his projections are true. He's going to have, a sub-4 ERA, maybe even sub-3 ERA. And, if we go by, looking at how many games he'll win. Now, I'm not a big fan of the win. I believe it's, pretty dumb how they calculate a win. He's going to win 11, 12, 13, maybe even 15 games. That's huge. That's huge coming from a pitcher who won 8 games in his first full season. I gotta say, that's incredible. That is absolutely incredible to me. So, with that being said, let me know what you think. Let me know if you think Taillon is going to be this type of pitcher. And, I strongly believe, if you're in a fantasy league or, if you bet on baseball, bet on Jameson Taillon. In a game against, if you put him up against Cincinnati or, Chicago or, Milwaukee or, the Padres or, a team, a team that is developing, or even the Cubs. The Cubs aren't developing; they are a championship caliber team. If you put Taillon up against a championship caliber team on his best day, Taillon will go 7 scoreless innings, and he will strike out batters. He'll not walk many batters. He'll give up maybe a hit or two, but Taillon is turning into that Kershaw-like pitcher. Now Kershaw's just exceptional. Comparing a pitcher to Kershaw is like comparing a batter to Barry Bonds on how many home runs they hit. Now, Taillon, I don't think will become Clayton Kershaw. I think Taillon is going to be his own pitcher, but he's going to start stealing or showing things that Kershaw has done, especially the curveball. I strongly believe that. So, let me know what you think. You can tweet at me at _SVish, or even tweet at the Triple Play Analytics, Try Play Analytic. I want to know what you guys think, or just comment below on this video. So let me know. I'll be publishing these graphs right after this so you can take a better look at them. And if you're interested, I'm working on a few stats for the NHL, kind of looking at playoff home ice advantage and also playoff wins above replacement. NHL wins above replacement, kind of find the NHL version of MLB WAR to kind of rank and analyze players to see how valuable they are and if that actually constitutes the fantasy value versus game value. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you guys later.